Should be at recording now. We've got quite a lot of UMIPs to get through today, including one quite complex one for RAI, and we've got another one which has zillions of different collateral currencies and price identifiers in it, the monster one. The first four I think we can go through quite quickly. We actually went through these four last week, and we had discovered a few issues with them. But the person that wrote the UMIPs was traveling and wasn't really available to address the issues that we identified. Is there any particular need to revisit 223, 224, 225, and 226?
Vari, are you going to share screen? I can share screen if you're not able to.
I can do. Do you want me to?
Yeah, I think that'd be super useful.
Hey, all.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Nick.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think there's still kind of the same issues on those, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's changed really since the last time that we looked at 223, 224, 225, and 226. I don't think Logan's made any additional changes, so it's still in the same state it was in at the last community call.
Yep,
So
I agree.
Do we just basically have the same outcome for these four as we did last time?
I think last time the reason why we waited on the collateral types was because there were like some small quality of life things, right? And they also wouldn't be super useful without the accompanying price identifiers, which had like more major issues. I was talking to John a little bit, and I was wondering what we thought about just including these collateral types within like the larger collateral UMIP instead, just to reduce the amount of votes that we would have.
On like a rolling forward kind of basis. So I feel like we would still want to get the price identifiers worked out too.
I just meant specifically the collateral, smushing the collateral ones and leaving the price identifiers separate, since there are still like some issues there.
Okay. I could also look at it like if we're looking to add the collaterals, maybe adding price identifiers too. If it's, I forget exactly what the issues were. Is it like a complicated thing, or it's something that we could probably resolve pretty quickly and get some reasonable USD price feeds for them?
I think it was more around just like choosing markets, right? So not super complicated.
Okay. Yeah, if we wanted to do that, I'd be happy to just kind of massage out whatever price identifier issues there are, because we've got pretty good templates at this point.
So we would effectively merge 223 and 225 into 238. Yeah, or 237, 238.
There's two different UMIPs. So there's like the price ID one and the collateral one. So I guess we would take the price ID and the collateral from these and kind of put them in there. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So that one is merge with 237. No, 238. That one is merge with 241. That one is merge with 238. And that one is merge with 241. Yeah?
Well, I think there's another question around BDP, because I know there was some controversy on Discord about it. I'm not sure if it's like a disqualifier for BDP as a collateral type or anything like that, but I do know that it's controversial, so I'm wondering if we should take any tokens that we don't have a broad consensus on and just kind of deal with them separately. Because otherwise it might be like a poison pill for omnibus UMIPs. And then it might be a good way of evaluating when we have a whole bunch of collaterals coming through at once, because I think we're going to want to do this a few different times, that if issues come up with any of them, just say, okay, pull it out. And then that's kind of an easy heuristic, and then we deal with that on its own. What do you all think?
Yeah, I kind of like leaving BDP as a separate thing. Also, I do think there are still some like outstanding comments on the open collateral. UMIP, like adding, like Rainis had added some comments around like adding some documentation on like the vesting schedule and treasury structure and all of that. So I don't know, like, do we just leave them separate? Rainis, what do you think?
Well, yeah, it would be, I think, better to address these issues, or at least have some idea how to get that information. Otherwise, we might be guessing here.
Yeah, I guess we're also working on like a big list for the next batch. So if we are merging it with another one, maybe we merge it with that later one if we're waiting on some additional information on it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like that. And also, like, then it's up to Logan and the OpenDAO team to like address some of these comments, which I think is better since, you know, it's specifically for the open token and projects they want to do. So I like that approach.
Yeah, makes sense.
So push.
So no go for only the collateral types or for the price identifiers as well?
I think all four, yeah.
Okay.
Well, do we have issues with the collateral type and price ID for the other ones too?
Which other ones?
Oh, not open, but sorry, this. Let me pull it up.
BDP.
BDP, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then yeah.
Was it not you, John, that was saying that BDP was controversial?
Well, I mean, controversial is one thing, but I'm also wondering if there's just like issues with the way that's written out. Because it's okay, I think, if like a collateral type is controversial and then you just kind of put it up for its own separate vote. Because the issues with it that were controversial on Discord, to me at least, I don't think that they're showstoppers for it. I think it's okay to have a token that you don't like approved as collateral as long as it's liquid and it's not going to go to zero instant leaks of some weird like code thing, or it has some kind of mechanic that's just going to make it hard to evaluate. You know, like it's, for instance, you know, I don't like Ripple, but if somebody had like RUNE XRP, I think it is a valid use case of having it in there as a collateral type just for shorting it. And I think that you would actually be able to evaluate it, and it's like fine. Like it's fine to have tokens you don't like in there, is my opinion on it. But if there's other issues with just the way the UMIP is written, then we can deal with those separately.
No, yeah, I don't think there's any particular issues with that collateral UMIP. Sean?
I mean, with the specific BDP as collateral, like I think that would be fine. But also there are issues with the BDP price identifiers. So I don't think there's any reason to rush that one, in my opinion. So I would be in favor of just pushing them all back.
Okay, so all four no go.
I think so.
That's fine. Oops. Okay. Now the next one was the RAI redemption rate price identifier. Have we got members from RAI in the team? Is it pronounced RAI?
I'm here.
Hi.
I'm Stefan, the guy leading Reflexer. Yeah. This is not actually my proposal. So we had a bounty on Gitcoin a couple of weeks ago, and a community member built this and then submitted the proposal on UMA. So I'm not actually leading this. I know he kind of saw your architecture and he proposed everything and he talked with the community. So I'm not really caught up to everything.
Cool. Thanks for being on though.
Stefan, did he, I'm not sure what his actual name is, but is he not going to join the call?
I think he was supposed to join. Yeah, I'll talk with him. He was supposed to join because I wanted to talk about the RAI as a collateral type UMIP, and he was supposed to talk about this one.
Okay, so what I suggest then is we'll discuss it, and in the channel that we have set up together, we'll loop back on some of the feedback specifically for the process.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, would you like to just give us a little overview of RAI and what the redemption rate actually is? Because I noticed a question on the GitHub about this.
Sure. So the very simple explanation for RAI is that it's like single collateral DAI, so it's only backed by ETH. But the main difference is that instead of being pegged to $1, so instead of having basically a number in the system set to 1, that number, that kind of peg is always moving. So instead of kind of setting it to 1, the peg is moving up or down. And this kind of peg moves up or down according to what the market price of RAI is on exchanges. Again, very simple version is that this moving peg starts to go up when the market price of RAI is below it, and it starts to go down when the market price of RAI is above it. And kind of the system tries to basically balance the demand to mint RAI with the demand to hold RAI. So it's very similar to in a way, a perpetual swap. So it kind of has a funding rate inside the system. And this funding rate, instead of actually paying interest to someone, it just kind of shifts the moving peg up or down, and it incentivizes the market price, or the market itself, to make the market price of RAI follow that peg. So it's in a way a kind of like a perpetual swap. It's a stable asset with a synthetic peg in a way. And this kind of peg moves up or down, and it's controlled by something that we call the redemption rate. And the redemption rate is basically a coefficient on chain. So it's something like, let's say, 0.9. And this coefficient is every second it's multiplied by the moving peg, which is we also call the redemption price, in order to modify the redemption price. So kind of every second the system does something like multiply the current redemption price with the current per second redemption rate, and this is the new redemption price. And that's how the moving peg works. And that's how kind of the funding rate per se, or aka redemption rate, works.
Super, thanks for that overview.
Very cool. Sounds a lot like our perpetual product.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. Yeah.
The token a rebasing token?
No, it's not rebasing. So it doesn't change the balance that you have in your wallet. It just changes the target price, or the redemption price, as we call it. So the price that the system wants RAI to have on exchanges.
What kind of volatility it has had previously? What kind of levels, like variation?
Right now it's fairly tightly correlated with ETH, because we have an incentive campaign where most people are supposed to mint RAI and LP it into Uniswap. So we make sure the market is very liquid and it's hard to manipulate the market price. Right now it's kind of like we don't have a ton of outreach. We still need to do a ton of marketing. People don't know about RAI, and people aren't really arbing like a ton right now, but it's still fairly stable. It has kind of 4%. In the past 2 weeks, it had something like 4% volatility. And it kind of every time on average, it kind of takes 5 to 7 days to get like the shift from a positive redemption rate to a negative redemption rate, kind of shift the kind of market price is either above or below the redemption price.
And
yeah,
Is RUNE and ERC 1155?
ERC20. Like it's exactly like DAI, like the DAI contract, ERC20 contract.
I think as a collateral type, there aren't any particular barriers. There was a note on the UMIP about it, about the final fee, where you had used 150 in some places.
Right.
And 160 in another, which clears up. But I think it's good as a collateral type. How do other people feel?
Yeah, seems reasonable to me.
Same.
Okay. Oops, sorry.
I wonder if we want to consider merging this one into the other UMIP as well.
We could look at that, and then we could also add on a USD price feed, because we could do the ETH to USD kind of conversion, and then just use the Uniswap TWAP for the RAI ETH pool, if we want to do that. I don't think it would take more than a
reasonable stuff.
Just a small note. We have a couple of plans for the next couple of months. So when Uniswap v3 launches, we'll probably wait like 1 or 2 months, and we will try to migrate the liquidity there. So we have deeper liquidity there, and we don't need to kind of throw so many rewards to people to keep decent amount of LP in the pool. So we will have something like a vault that will let you just deposit liquidity, and the vault just, for example, spreads your liquidity 10% around the current redemption price. And every 24 hours, someone can call the contract and redeploy the whole portion of the liquidity around the new redemption price. So in the next couple of months, we will migrate the liquidity, and we might also split a portion of the liquidity. So like 80% of the rewards can go to RAI ETH on Uniswap, and the rest of 20% can go to RAI DAI. We hope that we can make kind of arbing a bit easier.
Should we perhaps hold off on the RAI USD price identifier then, if the markets are going to change significantly?
I think it's okay, because we're going to have to update a lot of stuff for Uniswap v3 eventually. So if you guys are going to launch on v3 probably a couple months after they launch anyway, that's going to give us plenty of time to work out how we do our price IDs with that. Plus, I think it's only going to take a couple of minutes. It's pretty boilerplate to say, here's how to calculate the USD price from the price you're getting from the ETH RAI pool. So we might as well throw it in. It just makes it more useful.
So we're not yet sure how to do the migration. Like I think a ton of people think about this. One idea is to not like migrate everything at once, because that will disrupt first our system and then our partners' systems. So one idea is to say, okay, in the first 2 weeks when we launch on Uniswap v3, we split rewards between Uni v2 and Uni v3. So like, again, you don't get screwed, other partners don't get screwed, and then we migrate the rest.
Okay, so we're approving it as, we're suggesting approving it as collateral currency, but as part of 241. No, not 241, 238.
I'm sorry, did we get this RAI USD price identifier discussed before? Because I think it was RAI R3.
Yeah, there wasn't a proposal for RAI USD price identifier, but John suggested that you added one in.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty easy to throw on there, and it'll make it more useful. I know we talked about it in the threads on GitHub for the collateral, that it would be useful to have, so we might as well add it.
So this R3 remains like separate because it's a bit more complicated. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Stefan, are you okay with that approach? Just merging the collateral UMIP and
that's fine. Either way, I think the RAI as a collateral type 1, that should come first before the R3 stuff, because that depends on RAI, I think.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Agree.
Cool. Okay, so if we go back to the price identifier, there were quite a few issues raised around the redemption rate identifier. The first one is that April 21st is the first expiry time, but this token can't really be minted before the 18th.
I know. That's solved. We will nuke that, and we will probably just go with May and June, or June. So yeah, that can be nuked.
Okay. Oops. And then just something in the UMIP explain the meaning and role of redemption rate and why the self-referential model is used, why it's referring back to itself. Sean, I think that was your comment. Was it just for information, or were you confused about why the self-referential model was used?
Yeah, so I left a larger comment later on, and I just think generally it's not optimal to use a self-referential model unless like absolutely needed. In the past, we've kind of run into a few issues where synthetics that are using a self-referential price identifier but have low liquidity are like kind of dangerous to use because their price can move very quickly. So I was just asking for like further explanation on why the self-referential model needed to be used. Yeah.
I don't think it's needed to be used. It was more like, I think our community members saw that something similar in other UMIPs, I'm not sure. And that's why he just went with that. I mean, we're pretty much open to any model as long as it works and it's safe for you. And like, if you have something that's not self-referential, that's, I guess, fine.
So I think he brought up some like legitimate points around like if you weren't using a self-referential model, like kind of an attack vector that could occur where essentially like the synthetic price would trade like way above what the actual like rolling 30-day RUNE redemption price is. And then people would just like mint a lot at essentially an under collateralized position because like the synth price would be trading based off the anticipation of like the RUNE redemption movement. But I think like you could kind of get around that by just shortening like the amount of time that the rolling period is covering. So instead of like doing a 30-day rolling period, you do some shorter amount of time. So there's less of a difference between like the trading price of the synth and the actual RUNE redemption rate.
I don't think I have a comment on that. Like, again, I don't really have a solution. I think whatever you pick, whatever is picked, it won't be great in any scenario. Like it will have some trade-offs.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think we need to consider this further, Sean, or do you think we live with this self-referential model?
So I think there are a couple of other blocking things, specifically not having a price feed PR for the redemption rate calculation. So I think we can kind of use the time when that's being created over the next week or so to also think about the self-referential model as well. At least that would be my instinct here.
Okay, so we're going to go with a no-go. That one there.
I don't know, what, like, does anybody else think differently or think this isn't an issue?
I think that since any products that would be launched with this, it sounds like it would go later. So I don't think there's any cost to holding off on this and considering it more and kind of chatting more about it. Because I don't think anybody's trying to launch anything next week with it.
Cool.
Okay, let's hold off on that one. We've got the April to June, and also somebody suggested using the Ray R3 pool, which seemed quite acceptable to the proposer. There was also an issue around the proposer and disputer bots, which kind of links into implementation, isn't that right?
Yeah. So
yeah, okay. So that's really the same issue.
Yeah. Basically, previously for self-referential price identifiers, we didn't need a price feed for what would be the expiry price. So he followed like the pattern from previous price identifiers, which makes a lot of sense. But now with the optimistic oracle, we do need to be able to like calculate the expiry price as well.
Okay, so what I've got is the change April to June, use RAI R3 Uniswap pool as the market, add implementation data for the proposer and disputer bots, and revisit the self-referential model. And we hold off on that for another week. Yeah.
I also think this, if it was a self-referential price identifier, it would be a cool use case for the financial product library. And I put some information in there about that, where essentially like two price identifiers could be proposed. One, which is the rolling RAI price, the other one, which is the self-referential token price. And then the actual switch happens in the price identifier rather than like through like voter discretion, essentially.
Okay, right, so that's a no-go. Move on to 235. This is the collateral fees one. There was a comment about Pearl being significantly higher than the other ones, but that's a more volatile token. And a general comment about what pain this was to have to continually revisit it, but such is life. Are we good to go with this one?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Go. That was easy. Moving on to bDigg as collateral. Yeah, there's no discourse link, Sean. But apart from that, looks good. We're good to go in that one. Any other comments?
I don't know. bDigg's kind of interesting because it's like a vault token based off of a rebasing token. But I think it works. Everything that I've seen seems like it would work.
Is bDigg a rebasing token itself?
No, bDigg doesn't rebase, but
I guess
Digg is.
So the value of bDigg would just go up.
Yeah.
I think that should be fine. I think it's just the rebasing that we don't know about and we should be cautious. with.
Yeah, I agree. Like,
But
I don't think we could use Digg as collateral, right?
Mhm. Okay, so we're good to add the bDigg as the collateral type because it's not Digg and it's not a rebase token.
I think so.
yeah,
Excellent. Cool.
Do we want to merge this one in with the other collateral UMIP as well? Or is this one, since it's like somewhat different, should we leave it separate?
I think it's separate, and I think we should actually highlight it and try to get internal and community discussion on it.
Because of the rebasing thing?
Yeah, it's just not as like straight to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then it also kind of comes with a batch of additional kind of different feeling price identifiers that are all Badger related. So there's some genre grouping there, I guess, that it feels like it makes sense as its own separate thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool. So we're keeping that separate and it's a go. Moving on to 237, which is the Badger related price identifiers. Now, where was it? bBadger. We didn't actually have very many comments on this. Apart from the naming conventions.
And I think that's like a minor comment too, that I think the previous price identifiers came in before we had an expression price feed. And I didn't know if this was going to make it hard to work with the expression price feed, but there's ways around that anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the price identifier names are incredibly ugly, so I'd like to change them even if they don't cause issues with the expression price feed, but I just kept that one this way because it's inverse, you know. I didn't want to change it for the sake of consistency. But
do they need changed?
Maybe. I don't know.
Is that a need or a nice to have though?
It's a nice to have. It's not a big deal.
Okay. The other one was the discourse link. And there's a query here from you, John, about the subgraph. But that's just a general query. Yeah?
Yeah, because I just curious. Seems like it would be useful, but not a blocker either.
Okay. So that one's basically good to go with a discourse link.
I think so. I mean, that price identifier basically followed the exact same pattern as the last Badger Vault tokens that we proposed. So there was really no difference in the pricing methodology between the last one and this one.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Now we come to the bumper omnibus edition of how many? 11 different tokens. If we go to the collateral currencies first, we had a few comments. Just that one was extremely precise.
Yeah.
Final key there.
And I think this also brings up philosophical questions about these dollar coins too, where I've been thinking more about this over the weekend. The way that we currently handle dollar coins like USDC and DAI as collateral is that we act as though they're worth $1, but that's not precisely true. So I'm almost inclined to pull out all of the dollar coins from this UMIP and handle them separately, and then maybe go back in and consider how to best handle USDC and DAI at the same time. Because there could be situations in the future where just a dollar coin goes way off peg. Like there's different scenarios for each one. They're all kind of idiosyncratic for each one. But treating them all as though they're going to be worth $1 is not quite accurate. And for these, like I could see UST going wrong in some kind of obscure way, like it's more algorithmic. Tether could go wrong in some very obvious ways that where like you open up the vault and just like cotton candy in there. So I say let's drop the dollar coins and deal with it separately unless other people feel differently.
I think we should actually pick and be opinionated about a select few stablecoins that we do peg to. We do have certain UMIPs. Basically, if we take away the assumption that DAI is $1 or USDC is $1, we're gonna have to go back and like edit a bunch of UMIPs, which we probably should. But I think it's like pretty safe to assume that USDT and DAI and USDC are worth $1. Now, like something with UST, which is newer and unproven, I don't think we can make that same assumption, but it is very convenient for us to assume that some coins are worth $1.
Yeah, but I think it's also, you can treat collateral and price identifiers differently, in my opinion. Like thinking about this, like the price identifier, it's saying like, you know, what is the value of $1? Like we're getting the closest, we're taking maybe a median of 3 different markets that use different dollar coins anyway, or use actual dollars, but we're just trying to get like the best price we can. But for collateral, it's a little bit different. Collateral, you're trying to watch out for like one of these goes to 90 cents. And so now things are actually under collateralized, but you're acting as though it's $1. And so then you're giving price identifiers that aren't going to be like nested. You're not going to say like, okay, well now let's find the actual dollar value of DAI or something. We could just leave those price IDs as they are, I feel, unless we're trying to get extremely sophisticated with it. And if something dropped way off peg, then we could just change those price ID UMIPs and say like that's no longer a good price source for like, you know, the value of $1 versus ETH or something.
But when it like, I mean, the price identifiers themselves wouldn't like say that UST is equal to $1, right? Like it'd be a combination of a financial contract using UST as collateral together with some price identifier denominated in $1.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a contract by contract risk if they're choosing to use that as collateral.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you mean like for evaluating the value of some other collateral type versus $1 and how like if you had like a market that had UST as the quote currency, or are you talking about something different?
I'm talking about like assuming that it's equal to $1. Like, are you actually doing that in these price identifiers?
In the price identifiers, no. I think that the price identifiers, you say like, here's the method for calculating as accurately as possible the dollar value of this collateral type. And you might take one market with like a TWAP. If it's a Uniswap thing, you might medianize 3 that are all against like different dollar coin pairs. But that's just like the current best way to get the best price that you can. But evaluating it as a collateral type, there's problems you could run into if you're assuming that the collateral itself is always worth $1 and you don't have to check the collateral's price, because that could go sideways. And it's a little bit easier if it's like a price identifier and one of the quote currencies has gone sideways, because you could look at that and say like reasonably like that's not the actual value of this. But if you're always saying like this collateral type is always worth $1, now that's a little bit harder to deal with, I think, in the case where something goes wrong and it's going to the DVM. Where if you're explicit about it and saying here's our best way of calculating right now what the actual dollar value of DAI is, then you could go and deal with that in a more straightforward way. Does that make sense?
Not really, because unless like the price identifier itself incorporates like DAI or whatever collateral is being used in the contract, then like it wouldn't actually need to go to the DVM, right?
Yeah, but still, there might be, I think, some risk for liquidator or disputer bots because they rely on that precise source, like, if, for example, USDT, and that's off the peg. The bots will not know that there's something wrong with like peg, and they will be wrong, and they could risk that DVM would overrun, and that's, I think, a bit tricky to run those bots if you know there is such a risk.
And I think that this is also like a broader discussion, and I think it just might make sense to pull it and deal with it separately. And for me, at least, for me to organize my thoughts a little bit more about why I think that dollar coins are weird and the ways in which they're weird and maybe should be considered differently. But the more I think about it, USDT, UST, etc., I think are different kinds of collateral inherently than these other collateral types. And so maybe we just chop them out and circle back on it is kind of my feeling. I know this was my UMIP, but now I'm like, I'm not so sure about it. So that part of it, at least.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Just like remove the controversial ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that. We've got too many stable coins anyways.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back with another dollar coin one later, but we'll deal with the dollar coins at once.
Cool. Vari,
that's fine for.
I think you're on mute, Vari.
Thanks for letting me to that. Sorry about that. So we're going to remove USDT, yUSD, UST, and SUSD. Those are the only stable coins.
Yeah.
Cool.
We actually already approved USDT, so we can especially remove that one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great.
So figure out the funkiness, John, because.
All right. What is a dollar? What is money? I'm sad that the Rye guy left because he's thought about this more than anyone else probably on the call.
Absolutely.
Okay. There was a couple of others that I was a little bit concerned about. Ruler, for example, is only a month old. And it's like in the 800s by market cap. Are we?
Yeah,
is
that one.
Something that's wanting to use Ruler?
That one raised my eye.
Yeah, we could drop that one then. I think that the concerns about that one are also really similar to the other concerns about like liquidity incentives and how liquidity could go away, because that's definitely like an incentivized liquidity thing. And part of it was just going through and seeing like what has the best liquidity right now on Uniswap and SushiSwap, which does surface some that just have highly incentivized liquidity. So we'll just drop it. I don't think anybody's trying to use it yet.
Okay. And the other one was NFTX that I'd never heard of before. Again, I actually couldn't get their website to work. And it's an index token for NFTs. And it just seems extremely volatile and not very stable. Leave it in, take it out.
This is NDX.
NFTX.
NFTX, it's an NFT focused thing. I'm not emotionally attached to any of these either. So I would say that we can pull this one, and if somebody else wants to surface it to actually use it for something, we can revisit it.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think it's a problem if it's volatile. Like you can just create contracts that have different risk profiles. I think it actually has like a relatively high market cap, like 67 million. And
yeah.
It's a different market for us.
Yeah, we have like a couple of other NFT related things too, though. Which, if we're just concerned about this one specifically, but the other ones are less weird, then we're saying like, hey, we've got some NFT related collaterals now, and just kind of throwing it out there in those communities that might not be It's weird. Yeah, I don't know.
So what's the concern around NFTX? Is it like amount of liquidity or Barry?
Well, my main concern is that the screen, if I go to the token page for it or the website for it, I'm getting can't provide a secure connection.
It's loading for me.
Yeah, I was able to connect.
Okay. Well, I'm getting can't provide a secure connection, which I assume was something to do with HTTPS. I don't know. Maybe it's okay then.
Yeah. Personally, I'm good with it. I think it has more of a market cap than plenty of other collateral types that we've approved.
Okay. Leave it in?
I vote yes.
Cool. Let's get into NFTs.
Okay.
I think
RGT
and RUNE are also kind of in that general area, so that'll be cool.
RGT has got a bit of a longer history. That's been going, what, 4 months? But should we consider that one as well?
Yeah.
Leave in RGT, take out RGT?
Yeah, I think I'm good with all of the rest of them, personally.
Okay, cool. So that's just really removed. And then the USD stablecoins will be taken out and considered further at some point.
Also, the alpha final fee just looks a little bit off, but just a small thing.
Oh, is it too high or too low? I know it's kind of like volatile.
Too low.
Okay.
It's like $300.
All right, bump that up.
The only thing I have a question, why USD we shall remove, because it's a bit different. It's like a yield generating dollar. It's not like a stable coin per se.
Oh, that's a good point about yUSD. That is really true. We actually do have price feeds for that. So yeah, good catch on that. Because that's not worth $1. That's worth its own amount. Yeah. And we have decent feeds for it.
Okay. Super. And then finally on to the price identifiers for these ones. There was a couple of issues around rounding that were brought up. But the main issue appears to be the problem of multiplying a TWAP by a spot price. Rains, would you like to explain this? Because you were the one that found this.
Yes, so the main issue is just for querying the price where it's done through some other pair, and there is no direct market for currency and USD. And then if we rely on ETH USD as like conversion pair, then there might be mismatch in periods because the spot price is taken from ETH USD, while it was suggested to use time-weighted average price for the token in question and ETH, and that could get really strange and unexpected results if you mix those two things, because then probably alternative solution would be also to have some kind of ETH USD conversion that is time weighted, but then we can't rely on UMIP 6 because that's spot one.
That's interesting. Do we want to add another UMIP then that would, So UMIP 6, it's always taking the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is that something that we need to maybe have another UMIP for getting a time-weighted average price of ETH and USD if we want to do these conversions? Would that solve that problem?
Kind
Probably.
of.
I'm not sure if that 100% solves that problem, but definitely it would dampen the impact of any like variations if there was such thing.
And I guess, is this only a concern where your only price source is a TWAP? Or
yes, or alternatively, you have to, when calculated this TWAP, then you just take directly as inputs all the prices for each time period within this period and already convert to the spot. But that's, I think, pretty complicated calculation to do it. But that would be probably the best one, that if you have the period for this time-weighted range, then for each spot price, you convert it already to USD through ETH, and then only the result is time-weighted. But I'm not sure how to do it in practice.
I guess while we think about this one more, are there any others besides the yUSD where our only source is a time-weighted average price from an ETH paired AMM pool, and then we have the spot price of ETH, and so then that's weird? Because maybe those ones we could flag and try to come up with some better way of handling that, and then roll them into the next one.
There was a couple of others. I don't know if there would be other sources for it. There's yUSD, and then I'm not actually sure which ones these are. NFTX and RGT. These ones only had TWAPs as well. So it does affect quite a few tokens. So YFI, yUSD, is that one coming out? Are we taking out the ones that we're not using as collateral types?
Well, the yUSD is its own.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, are we all comfortable with the idea that if you're taking a median, that it's okay to have like this sort of TWAP with the spot price, and that's not that big a deal? And maybe we could circle back if we have a future UMIP for calculating like the ETH USD over an average time period, because it's basically like the median. So you'd only use the Uniswap TWAP with whatever ETH conversion if it winds up being right in the middle anyway.
Wouldn't you still have the same distortion problem though?
You would, but you'd also be comparing it to two other feeds that were also like either above or below it. And so then, yeah, you have this sort of like conceptual distortion here, but you also wound up with the median price that it disagrees with two centralized exchanges probably, but in exactly like the middle path. Because I think that we already do this in some other feeds, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I think we do.
I'm not sure that actually a median price would solve the issue though. That if there was a rapid market crash, the problem is you're taking it averaged across a period for one, but a spot price for the other. So if you've got three spot prices, the problem remains, even if you medianize.
Well, you'd be taking a spot price. I guess it would be three spot prices, sort of. You'd have like the TWAP for the like the token. Let's say it's like alpha or whatever. That's not how we're actually doing that one for alpha, but say it's alpha. You take the TWAP of that compared to ETH, And then you take the spot price of ETH along with like the spot price of Alpha against USD and a couple of centralized exchanges. And then you just take the median. I'm not sure exactly how that behaves differently in a broad market crash scenario though.
I think you can also get around like a large part of this problem by just shortening the TWAP. So
I think that's true.
Like a 5-minute TWAP will have like much less weird stuff happening against the spot price. Should be like tracking like the spot price closer than an hour-long TWAP, right?
Yes, I think a shorter time interval definitely helps in this case.
And still offers like a good amount of like manipulation resistance, which is like the entire reason for having the TWAP in the first place, right?
Do we want to approach this then of just setting a reasonable TWAP length that's shorter than an hour but longer than a minute? And how long would that be to make it expensive enough to make it hard to manipulate?
So I think we had used 5 minutes in previous UMIPs, but I think that could use some more analysis.
Do we want to take maybe like a 15-minute? Because I feel like that's still like the spot price isn't going to be so far off over that 15-minute period, but it's got to be, I'm not sure exactly how it scales up. I don't know what it looks like to make it more resistant to manipulation, but I figure each additional minute, it's like a Richter scale sort of thing, where 15 minutes is probably a lot more than 3 times harder than 5 minutes, but I might be wrong. Would 15 minutes feel about right to everybody? Or is 5 minutes still secure enough?
15 minutes sounds reasonable to me.
Is it worth considering pushing this one back for further consideration and thinking about it properly? Because as far as I know, there's nothing actually dependent on these price identifiers being passed.
Well,
So
I think there's going to be more though. So there will then be a backlog that I think that 15 minutes, if that feels like a comfortable solution for that one, then we could do that, because we already do something like this in other price feeds, but we haven't really considered that deviation between the spot price and how that distorts.
So if you all are comfortable with that, I guess it would be removing ruler, raising the alpha final fee, reducing the TWAP to 15 minutes, and removing the dollar coins. Because I feel like that would work. I think that that's fine. I'm not sure if we would come to any more robust solution over the next week, and if we do, we can go back and revisit, at least with the TWAPs.
I agree with that.
the very final issue was there was an issue with markets for YFI. Could we just look again at markets for YFI as part of the kind of review?
Yep.
There was a suggestion that the volume was a bit strange on the markets that had been chosen.
Yeah, I'll take another look at that. I think anything that is available on CryptoWatch should be good. So be swapping Kraken with something else and being able to get it.
Okay, so we've got 4 no-goes. We've got 1 that gets merged in, and then we'll have 5 votes. A few with small contingencies.
Oh, let's also add the RUNE USD RUNE price feeds to 241.
This one.
Well, no, not the.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yep. No worries. It's just so that I don't lose track of it, basically.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, thanks everybody very much for your time, unless there's any further issues.
Thanks, Far. Only 2 minutes over with 11 UMIPs to review. Not bad.
Great.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much for turning up. Thank you.
See you all.
Thank you. Bye.